welcome to Daily Briefing. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. July 24th, 2026.
Today we are watching escalating U.S. tariffs on 60 nations, crude oil breaking $100 a barrel, and major security warnings over autonomous AI agents finding software flaws. Also, if you were stepped outside in Parker, Colorado this morning, it is a clear 65 degrees, heading up to a high of 94 later today.
Tensions are definitely high across the board this morning, so let's get right into it.
All right, turning to U.S. news first. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has suffered a major legal setback in his high-profile lawsuit against a Houston area midwife.
Right. This was one of the key test cases for how far state officials could push enforcement against healthcare providers under Texas's abortion restrictions.
Exactly. The judge ruled against Paxton's office, blocking the state's attempt to penalize the midwife. It sends a pretty strong signal about the limits of administrative overreach in these state-level reproductive health cases.
And you have to wonder how this impacts similar cases pending in Texas courts. Paxton's legal team has been aggressive, but this ruling really puts a speed bump in front of that strategy.
It definitely creates a legal precedent that defense attorneys in Texas are going to lean on immediately. We will see if the state files an immediate appeal, but for now, it is a loss for the Attorney General.
Meanwhile, at the federal level, a massive coalition of state attorneys general is suing the White House. 25 states have filed suit against FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security.
They are accusing the Trump administration of illegally withholding allocated federal disaster relief funds that Congress already approved.
25 states is half the country, Alex. That is a massive bipartisan bloc of state leadership saying local emergency management is being starved of critical dollars.
It really is. The lawsuit claims DHS is using political criteria to delay or block funding meant for flood relief, wildfire recovery, and storm preparation. The states want an immediate injunction to force the release of those funds before peak hurricane season hit hard.
Emergency management directors have been warning for months that they cannot build infrastructure or pay contractors without those federal matches. This court fight is going to move fast because the money is needed right now.
Turning to Capitol Hill, the House version of the National Defense Authorization Act was released, and it contains some surprising labor protections.
Right. The draft explicitly rejects proposed cuts to the civilian defense workforce and strips out several anti-union labor provisions that had been pushed by conservative cogs.
That is huge for hundreds of thousands of federal defense employees. The bill preserves job security guarantees and maintains collective bargaining rights across military bases and shipyards.
It shows that despite heavy political polarization, there is still strong bipartisan resistance in the House to gutting the civilian intelligence and logistics workforce that supports the military.
It is a clear win for federal labor unions who spent the last few months lobbying hard against those proposed workforce reductions.
Out in Washington state, we are tracking a serious aviation incident near Susha Island. A Kenmore airplane carrying 11 people was forced to make a crash landing offshore.
The good news is that all 11 individuals on board have been accounted for by emergency responders.
That is a massive relief given how cold and treacherous those waters can be, though one person is currently in critical condition at a Seattle trauma center.
Coast Guard cutter crews and local sea rescue units managed to extract everyone from the water remarkably fast. The National Transportation Safety Board is already heading out to investigate what caused the engine failure over the water.
And finally, in U.S. news, some telling political reactions coming out of Georgia. A crowd in Cobb County loudly booed a video broadcast showing former President Trump's recent campaign stop in the state.
Cobb County has really become a bellwether district in Georgia politics over the last few cycles.
It used to be a reliable conservative stronghold, but that crowd reaction shows just how much suburban Atlanta voters have shifted.
It underlines the sharp political divisions state campaign managers are dealing with as they look at electoral maps for the upcoming midterm cycles. Suburban voters, they're clearly letting their voices be heard.
Absolutely. When we come back, We will look at massive new international trade tariffs and escalating military actions in the Middle East.
Welcome back. Let's step into global news, where the White House has just executed a massive shakeup in international trade policy.
The U.S. has officially imposed sweeping new tariffs ranging from 10% to 12.5% on imports from 60 trading partners.
That includes the United Kingdom, China, and the entire European Union. It is one of the most aggressive single-day tariff actions in modern history.
Market analysts are already predicting a domino effect. Supply chains are going to face immediate cost hikes, and retaliatory tariffs from Brussels and Beijing are pretty much guaranteed at this point.
And this comes at a time when global supply chains were just starting to normalize. Expect price tags on everything from European machinery to consumer electronics to move up in the coming months.
Speaking of the European Union, Brussels just landed two major blows of its own today. First, they announced their 21st sanctions package against Russia.
And this one goes directly after the financial piping. The EU is targeting a $120 billion cross-border payments network and 14 specific crypto service providers.
What makes this historic is that it is the EU's first formal ban specifically targeting third-country crypto entities that are helping Moscow evade trade restrictions.
They are basically telling international crypto exchanges, choose between doing business with Russian entities or access to the European market. It is a major escalation in financial warfare.
And Europe's regulatory hammer did not stop there. The European Commission also handed down a $1 billion antitrust fine against Google.
The Commission ruled that Google violated the Digital Markets Act by systematically favoring its own shopping and local search services over competitors in search results.
Beyond the $1 billion penalty, the EU is ordering Google to immediately halt self-preferencing practices across all 27 member states.
Google says they plan to appeal, but European regulators are making it crystal clear that they will aggressively enforce the Digital Markets Act against American tech giants.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the military situation is deteriorating rapidly. Iran launched a direct wave of attacks targeting U.S. military bases in Jordan and Iraq overnight.
Regional air defense systems engaged dozens of incoming missiles and drones, but military officials report that coalition interceptor stockpiles are being severely depleted.
That is the critical issue here. High-end missile defense interceptors like the Patriot and THAAD systems take months or years to build, and this high rate of expenditure is creating real logistics anxiety for the Pentagon.
With baseline stockpiles running low, strategic planners are warning that coalition forces may face difficult choices about which facilities to prioritize for defensive coverage if the strikes continue.
Coming up next, a quick update on major headlines out of India, followed by significant developments in energy and crypto markets.
Turning to India, we are monitoring a tragic situation in Himachal Pradesh, where a severe monsoon landslide buried a passenger cab in the Lahaul Spiti district.
Local officials have confirmed that 13 people lost their lives in the disaster. It highlights the severe ongoing danger posed by heavy monsoon weather in the northern mountain corridors.
Rescue teams had a tough time even reaching the remote site due to continuous falling debris and blocked roads.
In the legal realm, OpenAI won a major victory in India's High Court today regarding a high-profile copyright dispute.
The court ruled in OpenAI's favor, setting an important legal precedent in India that training artificial intelligence models on publicly available online data does not automatically constitute copyright infringement.
That is a landmark ruling for the AI industry across South Asia, especially as global regulators debate the ethics of training data.
Meanwhile, India's Supreme Court took a stern stance against the central government regarding the ongoing NEET exam paper leak controversy.
The justices reprimanded officials, stating bluntly that systemic flaws in national competitive examinations cannot be swept under the rug or allowed to continue.
Hundreds of thousands of medical students have been protesting the integrity of the test, and the Supreme Court's intervention forces the government to present a full overhaul plan for test security.
Let's turn to finance and energy, where the big headline this morning is crude oil breaking a major psychological barrier.
Brent crude spiked past $100 a barrel today for the first time since May.
And that surge is directly tied to those Iranian strikes against U.S. facilities in the Middle East and fears of shipping disruptions through the Strait of Hormuz.
Energy traders are pricing in serious risk premiums right now. If oil stays above $100, consumers are going to see gas prices jump at the pump within days, which compounds global inflation concerns.
In corporate media news, a federal judge has extended the temporary restraining order blocking the proposed merger between Paramount and Warner Brothers for another 14 days.
That gives antitrust regulators at the Department of Justice 2 extra weeks to review how the consolidation of two massive legacy studios would affect streaming market competition and theatrical distribution.
It buys time for opponents of the merger who argue combining these media libraries creates an unfair monopoly in content creation.
On the digital assets front, we are seeing major stress across the crypto ecosystem today. First, Poland, which was once the world's largest Bitcoin mining pool, has formally filed for bankruptcy.
They're looking to sell off remaining physical data centers to clear over $173 million in debt.
It shows the long tail of the crypto liquidity crises that started back in 2022. Infrastructure providers that over-leveraged during the bull run are still collapsing under debt burdens.
And we're seeing corporate Bitcoin treasury companies pivot away from digital assets entirely.
Several publicly traded firms that accumulated massive Bitcoin balances on their balance sheets are now selling off their reserves to pay down debt, with many shifting their core operations to lease computing power for AI workloads instead.
When share prices for these treasury companies collapsed, shareholders essentially forced management to sell the crypto and pivot to generative AI to generate actual operational cash flow.
Adding to the sector's headaches, offshore exchange BitMEX is shutting down operations while facing a brand new proposed class action lawsuit.
The lawsuit alleges systemic insider trading, illegal collateral retention, and predatory liquidations of customer accounts during planned server outages.
It is a messy end for one of the original crypto derivatives platforms, leaving former users scrambling to secure their remaining assets before the shutdown deadline.
Not all crypto news is negative today, though. South Korea's financial giant Miri Asset completed a 97% acquisition of local exchange Corbit.
They announced plans to completely rebrand Corbit into a new entity called DigitalX, targeting institutional tokenized real-world assets and regulated stablecoins.
That is a clear sign that traditional Asian megabanks are taking over crypto infrastructure and bringing it under strict corporate governance.
Stick around, because up next we have major tech and AI breakthroughs, including serious zero-day security threats discovered by autonomous AI agents. Moving on to tech and cybersecurity news, where the line between artificial intelligence research and real-world network attacks is blurring fast.
The Hacker News is reporting that an attacker successfully deployed an autonomous AI agent called Hermes on a rented server to execute unattended post-exploitation scans against Thailand's Ministry of Finance.
Once the attacker gained initial access, they just handed the keys to the Hermes AI agent, which automatically navigated internal network shares, identified target databases, and attempted privilege escalation without any human intervention.
That is terrifying from a defensive standpoint. Security operations centers are built around observing human speed, but an autonomous AI agent can map networks and test exploits in seconds while the human hacker is asleep.
And the speed of AI vulnerability research was highlighted in another major incident this week involving Redis software.
AI agents utilizing the Kimi K3 reasoning model autonomously discovered multiple zero-day vulnerabilities in Redis and generated functional remote code execution exploits on their own.
Redis had to rush out emergency security patches to fix the vulnerabilities before malicious actors could weaponize the public findings.
Think about how drastically that shortens the patch window. Security teams used to have weeks or days between a vulnerability release and active exploit deployment. Now, AI systems are finding the bug and writing the code to exploit it simultaneously.
Defensive teams are going to have to adopt autonomous AI defense models just to keep up with the automated threat actors.
Meanwhile, researchers have raised a big red flag regarding Anthropic's Claude Cowork feature on Mac operating systems.
They discovered a sandbox escape vulnerability that allows the Claude Cowork AI agent to break out of its assigned virtual machine environment and read or write files directly on the host Mac system.
That puts an estimated 500,000 Mac desktop users at immediate risk of having local application files, browser-saved data, or personal documents exposed if the agent is tricked into running malicious scripts.
Anthropic says a patch is rolling out, but users are advised to disable Claude Cowork features until the update is applied locally.
On the state-sponsored cyber espionage front, Russian government hackers successfully exploited a zero-day flaw in Zimbra enterprise email software.
The attackers used the exploit to intercept private communications and bypass two-factor authentication codes for target government agencies and corporate executives.
Zimbra is used heavily by public sector institutions, making this a high-impact breach. Security teams need to apply vendor mitigations immediately to prevent ongoing credential theft.
In product launches, OpenAI has officially launched ChatGPT Health for all users in the United States.
This dedicated feature allows users to directly sync their personal health data, including medical records and Apple Health metrics, straight into the ChatGPT interface.
The goal is to help individuals summarize lab results, track fitness trends, and process personal health inquiries using generative AI assistance.
While that sounds convenient, health privacy advocates are already pointing out the massive data governance questions this creates under HIPAA laws. Users need to understand exactly how their private medical telemetry is being stored and used for model training.
In ending tech on a major medical milestone, scientists have successfully transplanted supercooled kidneys into pigs in what organ research teams are calling a landmark achievement.
Previously, donor organs could only survive outside the body for a very short window of hours, leading to thousands of wasted organs every year due to logistics delays.
By using specialized supercooling preservation techniques, researchers kept donor kidneys viable for days before successful implantation into living animal subjects without tissue damage.
If human clinical trials clear regulatory hurdles, this technology could completely eliminate organ transplant waiting list delays caused by geographic distance. That is truly groundbreaking science.
When we come back, we will close things out with some lighter cultural stories, sports updates, and an unusual royal appearance. Wrapping up with sports and culture today, the Glasgow Commonwealth Games kicked off with a truly bizarre ceremonial opening.
King Charles and Queen Camilla literally stepped out of a life-size TARDIS prop from Doctor Who to officially launch the international sporting event.
That is definitely one way to make an entrance. Scottish organizers leaned heavily into British pop culture to welcome thousands of athletes from across the Commonwealth nations.
It certainly got the stadium crowd cheering, and it sets a lively tone for the competition over the next fortnight.
In professional hockey, three-time Stanley Cup champion Patrick Kane has signed a 2-year contract extension to stay with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Blackhawks fans are thrilled. The main story here is getting to watch the veteran superstar mentor rising prodigy Connor Bedard on the top line for another 2 seasons.
Having a future Hall of Famer guiding Bedard's development gives Chicago a solid core to build around as they rebuild their roster into a playoff contender.
Over in the NFL, the Carolina Panthers released stunning new architectural renderings for a $1.3 billion renovation of Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
The massive funding project aims to completely modernize fan concourses, add state-of-the-art upper-deck amenities, and secure the franchise's stadium footprint for decades to come.
Local government leaders and team owners finalized the public-private funding split, ensuring construction will begin without threatening to relocate the franchise.
And finally, in legal developments surrounding the high-profile D4VD murder trial in Los Angeles, key forensic evidence was presented in court today.
Expert witnesses testified that microfragments discovered on victim Celeste Rivas Hernandez specifically matched chemical compounds sampled from the swimming pool at the singer's rented property.
That technical evidence marks a critical breakthrough for prosecutors as they work to establish physical link in the ongoing trial.
It is a dark case, but the scientific evidence being presented in court is proving to be pivotal for the jury.
From high-stakes international trade and security warnings to medical breakthroughs, today reminds us just how fast global policy and technology are moving in 2026.
Stay safe out there, keep your software updated, and thanks for listening to Daily Briefing. We will see you right back here tomorrow morning.
Take care, everyone.